Let's introduce ourselves first. I'm Marc. I'm a proud dad of 3 kids, and this is a picture of my cubicle, so I like to play the guitar at home. I'm a Java developer disguised as a solution architect, so I'm trying to promote development more than I like to do PowerPoints. But, well. So that's a little bit of my background.
Thanks. This is me. My name is Renny Wijngaard. I'm also a Java developer, but the function at Kadaster is called integration specialist. And traveling. Last October I went to Barcelona with my son, and this is, I think, a physical example of a continuous integration. And continuous
150 years.
Yes, it's 1882 they started, and they say, well, in the 3rd decennium of 2000 it will be delivered, something like that. So 2026 it will be finished, but I think it's a nice example of physical continuity.
Okay. Still going strong. Yes. So we're from Kadaster. So what do we do? Let's have a small movie about it.
In 1832, when Louis Napoleon introduced a cadastral system in the Netherlands, for the first time the rights of all landowners were recognized. And Louis, he was able to collect land tax to finance his wars. Since then, Kadaster registers and maintains all legal rights concerning property in our country. A buyer of a parcel of land or a building is not the owner until registration and Kadaster is effected. To know who owns what is the basis of economic development and therefore better living conditions anywhere in the world. Land registration, land use development, geo-information. In the 21st century, the knowledge of the Netherlands Kadaster is used way beyond its own borders. In Turkey, Africa, Peru, or for example Russia that modeled its own web services on Kadaster Online. Dutch society is extremely complex, forcing us to make the most efficient use of space, on land, in water, in the air, even underground. Kadaster is the source of reliable information. Information is not only collected and registered, but also made available. Daily, more than 100,000 exchanges of information take place, and yearly, more than 21 million standard products are sold online. Apart from the tailor-made solutions, when cities expand, farmland becomes residential. A young couple buys a plot to realize their dream house. They'll want to know the design of the area. The location of a primary school, the bus stop, or where there will be a supermarket. The world around us is constantly changing. Particularly, technology is still developing at a rapid pace. The concept of space has gotten incredible dimensions. The success of mobile equipment shows in which direction demands are moving. Information on site, where and whenever you want it. Kadaster is widely involved in these new developments. We have an increasing amount of information at our disposal, and it is important to link the data available in order to react promptly, for example, where matters of public order and safety are concerned, or when new policy needs to be developed. Kadaster, as independent advisor, cooperates with partners in solving a number of problems that concern everyone, such as the environment, energy supply, land and water management, real estate, and spatial planning. In short, Kadaster, together with its partners, is working to meet the expectations of our society.
So now you know all, right? But at least you have some idea of our context. It's about land administration. We collect a lot of data from the maintenance. Municipalities, exactly. And we distribute that. We do a lot of spatial stuff, so about the geo side of the information. Very interesting. And of course we do a lot of that with our IT as well. So the delivery of continuous delivery at Kadaster. What we like to share is a bit of our story, of our journey towards continuous delivery. And let's start with the old days when we did some waterfall or waterfalling, something about that. Who does remember the ruk op maat? Operational unified process, yeah, great days. And ETL is also really cool. We had a ontwikkel process, development process. We had about 80 artifacts, and 1 was software, and 79 were documents. Yeah, cool times. But well, I think it's about 8 years ago or so that from the bottom up we started to have some extreme programming methodologies, and so we started with test-driven development, so having unit tests, automating our own development process. So good old Hudson, who doesn't know good old Hudson? Great build server we had, and so there was a community forming at the developers level. So that was the start of having some more agile or some extreme programming stuff coming up. Then about, I think 3 years ago, there was we had a CIO who really wanted to change things, and he introduced Scrum at management level at least. So we had teams and we were forming teams, but not the whole IT department was the same. But now we were sort of agile with real Scrum teams. We had teams. Let's keep it there. And we did have our daily stand-ups, our daily Scrum meetings. We did have 4-week sprints because we had the monthly releases. So we started with 4 weeks sprints. But that's in progress and improving. So nowadays we have about 50 Scrum teams in our IT department. Yes, in IT. So there's still a business and IT. It's really in the organization. But we do have product owners from the business most of the time. So that's a good start. And there's a lot of dust flowing around about these product owners and their stakeholders and stakeholder management. And so things are changing and we are getting there, but well, this is where we are right now. So we just we're discussing the teams and budgets and costs and money. Well, it's an interesting game that we're in.
Marc? There's not one product owner at the business, I guess.
There's not one product owner from the business. No, many products. Yeah, many product owners. Yes, good point. Thank you.
And what's the size of an IT team?
Depends between 2, 3 minimum till 10. And we even have, I'm in a project, yes we do have projects as well, but I'm in a project where we have 4 Scrum teams of about 7 working together. So it's scaling, agile is applied. We're finding our ways. So we have scrums in some parts or in some areas or between some teams, and we do have 2 small teams to really do DevOps. So it's interesting, and we have it all. But at least we are at the stage that we could, that we wanted to promote continuous delivery more into our own organization, as well as telling the story of continuous delivery. So that's why we produced this short film.
Kadaster registers the ownership of property and geo-information. This is our statutory responsibility, and with this, we provide legal certainty in the Netherlands. Users must be able to rely on the accuracy of data relating to land, space, and property. But we do far more than that. We're transitioning from a traditional land registry to a digital platform for the geo sector. We provide our data for organizations, local government agencies, citizens, schools, and colleges. They can combine our information with data from other sources.
In de nieuwe versie zie je ook de rode lijnen van het gebouw worden.
Ja, cool. Dat is wel een stuk duidelijker, hè?
This is how we collaborate to offer optimal information, a process that's always changing and demands our IT systems to perform flexibly. Technical developments and market demands are almost impossible to predict. To keep up with progress, we need to continuously innovate our IT systems and processes.
Goedemorgen iedereen, hoe zijn we gekomen gisteren, wat is de status?
Ik ben met 668 begonnen, die op een toon kan meeposten.
Zal ik daar zo meteen even meekijken?
Ja, graag.
Heb je nog andere dingen onder handen?
Ja, 669, de assering van de arbeidsapplicatie.
With IT, we want to respond to changes in the market swiftly and efficiently. That's why we continuously upgrade our systems. Instead of making big changes every now and then and taking a system offline temporarily, we now make minor improvements daily and the system stays online. New functionalities go into production several times a day. To do this, we use continuous delivery, whereby the software development process is automated in what's called a pipeline. Adapting and expanding software begins by altering code. We store the code in a version management system that makes it easy to keep track of updates. This system helps us develop changes in side flows and carry out quality checks before adding them to the main flow. Updates are checked again in the main flow and automatically rolled out into production. We continuously monitor progress in the pipeline to make sure the changes go into production properly. If something goes wrong, we notice it immediately. Continuous delivery is a controlled process that constantly expands the system in the desired direction. It delivers users with new functionalities much faster and allows them to share their experience with us straight away. In an increasingly digital society, we perform an important role. We continue to innovate with our data and knowledge, and in collaboration with our partners, provide added value in the Netherlands and abroad.
I recognize someone, but nevertheless. Yes, I am a little bit continuous delivery evangelist, at least inside at Kadaster. So that's why I was in the movie, and that's why I promoted this. And I wanted to tell the story internally, as well as spreading the word that it's a movement you want to do with your team, with your development. So that's the basis of the story. So that was I've presented this internally as well, and explaining what do you need to do this, just to make it simple and slow, accessible. Thank you for new teams or old teams with old mindsets to adapt and to
Also
have it as well.
to inform the business,
Yes, and inform the business and hopefully inspire them. Yeah, exactly. So, but now after the dinner, and so let's have some movement going on. All right. Yes, please. Yes, we want to involve you as well, because we want to learn from you as well. Because we have some statements prepared. Want to do the first one?
Yes, okay. So this is the first statement. We say that continuous delivery equals continuous integration. And
So,
yeah, true or false?
Yeah.
If you agree, you go to the right, you go on this side, and if you don't agree, you go to the left side.
Zei je, ik zal het doen.
Which one is it? I disagree. It's the false side. Don't agree.
Okay, dus oké, dan is het.
That is an interesting outcome.
You're a Boolean.
Okay. It's an interesting outcome.
So why? First, not that side. Why is it equal?
Why make a difference? Why continuous delivery is including integration?
Right. So this side.
Why not?
Just a subset.
Because software integration is one part of it, but deliveries actually bring to production. You can always choose to have a continuous integration without a continuous delivery. You need to push a button for production. So that's the difference.
Okay.
Okay.
10%.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Let's have the next one. So, true, false.
This side is false. Maybe you have continuous delivery, but you push the button on up and down.
Yeah. Again, this could be a bit of a technicality, but in continuous deployment, you want to make sure that if all tests pass, the software ends up in production. So you're going to automate from the last testing step, you're going to automate the rest of the deployment. And for continuous delivery, usually you don't. That's why it's called continuous deployment in the first place.
You don't what? You don't.
Yeah, you can go. It's more like, okay, so you can do continuous delivery where your deployment is also continuous. So then you rely on all the tests. You're not going to do any manual checks. There's no management improvement. Just test pass production. And you don't need that to do continuous delivery. You can still have
If I may rephrase from your opinion, if you do continuous delivery, you can stop here and you can make this a manual action.
Yeah.
Okay.
And still you can call that continuous delivery.
Okay, who does agree with that statement? Yeah?
Although it's manual, it's still a deployment.
That's the point. But it's not continuous, it is not initiated by checking, let's call it that. So the pipeline runs automatically and then it stops somewhere, and then you have to do it manually.
And then,
Well, that's only a difference between kind of automation and manual. You could have continuous deployment even if there's a person always clicking there to do it. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the same, I would say.
Yeah, for me this is more concept oriented. So with continuous delivery, once you do Agile, you have a small piece of work, a story. Once that story is fixed, you're going to deploy your software to production. You're not going to wait until you have 3 or 4 stories fixed or a whole release. You're just going to release after that story is finished. There's no need to wait to give it to the customer. How it's put in production is not that important. I mean, that could be manual. For me, with continuous deployment, as I understood it, at least it was more about putting your automation all the way into production without any discontinuity.
I think you can even have continuous delivery without going live with the latest business features.
The feature switch.
Yeah.
That's a different story.
But maybe a next level.
but is that adding value to the customer?
It's reducing risk.
Yeah, there's a value in reducing risk.
Now there's a value that you can implement it. Maybe you can, because you have a feature toggle to go live. The value can be that you can, maybe you can have sort of small live testing in production, in a small set of users, and then still I think the added feature is still that you can deliver it a lot faster. But it's sort of
Well, I
not
think
really
we are
sharp
deviating already
definition.
from this topic.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the next one.
Okay.
So is there a difference until production or until acceptance? Should it be until production?
Well,
Continuous delivery or continuous deployment should be until production.
Continuous deployment should be
if you deploy into the production environment, then you exercise the potential risk of it not being deployed. Right? So you test more by pushing it into the production environment.
So you have to make sure that you have to have a better catch before you have it actually in production. Or you
have a feature switch and A/B testing that will allow you to do that in production.
Yeah.
Yeah, generally you can say if you want to really want to do continuous deployment versus continuous delivery, you should have more automation and more confidence in your automation. And it can also be that sometimes for some products, I've also heard the story from Spotify, for example, where they, with the backends, they generally do continuous deployment, let that be by the autonomous teams. But for the front ends or the web clients or like the mobile apps, that hey, okay, we have too many moving parts that need to, come together and then look like one thing.
Yeah.
So there we sync up and we have like a sync up phase, and then we do like a when they go together. So even if you're done earlier, you can still do continuous delivery, as in you can get it to test users, but it will not get to an end customer yet until several things are finished.
But I personally think that continuous delivery is one thing that starts from development until it gets to the customer being using that feature. That's continuous delivery. It's not continuous delivery if it gets to acceptance and then stops there. That's half term or short term. For me, continuous delivery is until the user is I see the bug fixed in production.
No, but that I agree with. But I think the difference is more that with deployment you assume that every change individually directly goes live versus a continuous delivery is just a feature that's in the hands of the customer, and that.
Well, then we would say continuous deployment. It's the question below until production. It's deployment until when? It's
it's an interesting discussion because we have this internally as well. Okay, we want to do continuous delivery, so we go to production 10 times a day, 100 times a day. It should be there in 5 minutes, or can it be collected and go to production in every sprint, so every 2 weeks? And there is not really an answer because there are different aspects and different
and you need
contexts.
to get this requirement clear before you start.
Yeah. Well, that's why we wanted to post this statement, because we wanted to learn from you as well. And clearly we have a clue at all.
That's for the company itself to understand. So there's no right answer. You can have sprints of 1 week for some companies that makes sense, or a month or 2 months.
And the same continuous delivery. Exactly. So continuous delivery until production, then you need 100% automated tests, right? No? Okay, me too.
This is the false.
This is the false side. This is true. This is
okay, finally some breathing space here.
Why not?
What are you? True or false? In the middle.
So this side clearly says hope that you have to do 100% automated tests.
No.
Well, continuous delivery is continuous deployment for everything you code. So if you don't have 100% test and you still deploy it into production, then you will have large risks. So you need to do the testing. Or you do not continuous delivery by stopping it and do manual tests and then deciding manually to deploy it. That's not continuous delivery.
What does this say about coverage? 100% means 100% coverage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it needs to know manual tests. All you said.
Exactly. No manual test.
But how about user acceptance tests? When do you place them?
Automated.
Ask a real human.
How about UI tests?
Real human doesn't like it.
Exploratory tests. There are tests that you do before you deploy to production and tests that you do after test to go to production. So exploratory testing is still needed, no matter if you do continuous delivery or continuous deployment.
Yeah,
Right. So there's a difference. Sorry.
Yeah, but you should have confidence that the product you deliver, your service is okay,
Yeah.
and then you do exploratory test.
Yeah.
That you shouldn't find things that break. So you can still find corner cases, but it should be fine.
Yeah. You should have 100% confidence that your deployment is correct.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you need 100% automated tests.
For
I need the confidence.
Yeah, sometimes the multiplicity of the combinations means that you get combinatorial function. So you literally cannot unit test or integration test literally everything. And then I think it's useful in those situations where you say, okay, we have a lot of automated tests.
Yeah.
With that, we prove that we have enough confidence that we can deploy to production. In parallel, we have people who are doing exploratory testing. They figure out that maybe user experience is broken, or something does not add up in the UI, or how it feels like, okay, we can improve here or there. And maybe those things are bigger changes that turn into user stories.
Yeah,
Right? But they're maybe not showstoppers or blockers, or not something that is critical to stop. So then you say that you can do parallel, just like there's some places where they have like load testing. They continuously, in that sense, they might do continuous load testing or penetration testing, etc.
Yeah, but
They do
the
that
question
in
under this statement is that if you do a manual test after it, maybe you should, if you find something, decide, did the test what I did, I should automate that and run it in the set the next time.
Yeah, that might be the end result, but then you have the flow of continuous delivery and maybe continuous deployment, and in parallel you do other kinds of tests. That means not 100% of your tests are automated. That is then the conclusion.
Right.
That's at least that's how I understood it.
So not 100% is automated, but the pipeline isn't stopped for manual testing.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's
you have a residual risk in production.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can accept that.
Yeah.
Or not.
Or manage this feature topics.
How can you be always sure that you have 100% tests?
Yeah, good question.
It's not only code coverage, but it's also, are you testing it properly? Are you testing it for every single condition out there?
What we are saying is that this you can explain the statement in a different way. You could say, well, we don't rely on a manual test.
Right.
Yeah.
So if this some feature is important, then you should, I think in my opinion, you should write an automated test for it, and you should run it, and if the test fails, then the pipeline is broken and goes no to production. So what you, yeah, and then if you do exploratory test, then maybe you find something, you should automate it.
Yeah, that's evolution.
Yeah, that's evolution, and then you get, end up with this, that your test base will grow, but the test you created should run always. Automated.
Well, I like the idea the other way around. If all my tests pass, then I have delivered software according to the specifications.
Yeah.
If you have a problem with specifications, then you need to go to the designers and the requirements.
Maybe you find a corner case, but it's
I'm
not.
fine with that, actually. Yeah, because it moves also this, like testing if the design works for users. That's something you can shift to the user experience designers. It's not my problem.
And you say your acceptance tests are all automated.
And if somebody gives feedback on the production system, then that just goes into requirements again. And then give me requirements, give me tests, and I'll change the code so that the test passes.
Yeah, exactly.
Bit of a multi-coding principle, but it's
As data-driven development.
Yeah, behavior development. So you need
it
a
is
new
sound
scenario
principle.
and you describe what you wish.
Yeah.
Next, right? Cool. How's time?
Oh, nice.
Ah, that's nice.
True, false.
Depends on your platform.
Okay, one question. Desired or reality?
Should be. Desired.
Desired. Okay.
Yeah,
The dream is here.
Designers on all here.
Yeah, okay. I tend to believe this, but
Yeah, interesting.
So many people want it,
Yes.
but because of the question, nobody has it. So nobody is doing continuous delivery.
oh, this is close.
Maybe in cloud, probably not in cloud, not on premises.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I think we can have a seat. Oh no.
Can I be on the false side again?
It's nice to have.
I think we cannot just throw a unicorn board about the continuous delivery.
When is it service?
What's the definition?
Back to semantics.
So you're the guys from the monoliths?
No, that's a value judgment.
Yeah,
That's not what the mainframe.
It's almost a moral statement. You can do continuous delivery of monoliths. Or you should is a different question.
that's true.
I have worked with microservices without continuous delivery.
Yeah, that's also
It was hell.
We have a hard life. We did that 25 years ago. It's the other way.
So you're saying
We call them
you
demons.
can't do
No.
continuous delivery without microservices?
I think it will be easier with Microsoft.
Wow. Great. Yeah. It's a different symbol in the middle.
What's the symbol? He took it to tease you, right? So
Okay.
So
Success. Yeah.
So microservices will make it easier to have smaller services, smaller units of what you deliver.
Well, microservice is just it's a sign of the times. And you get to functions without servers, and who knows what the future will bring. So
I would like automated tests using microservices in a full scale. You can do unit testing of a microservice, but when you start composing them, you have to be kind of a genius to do an automated test for that.
That's true.
I don't know.
Okay, that's
All right. Let's have a seat. Thank you.
Ja. Dit is het simpel. Okay, dus eigenlijk is het een afkorting van continuous delivery of deployable artifacts.
So it was interesting learning and discussion. This is what I tell internally about what it actually is about. So it's not the techniques underlying or what do you need for it on a technical level, but what is it conceptually. And actually it starts with ownership. We have like lots of services, lots of systems, but who is the actual owner and how do I get towards continuous delivery? Well, then I need to take ownership of what I'm responsible for. So you need to take ownership. And so you need to take ownership of your application as well as the infrastructure. And we come from a situation where we have like the development department and we have like the ops department. But if you really want to do continuous delivery, you have to take ownership of both. And the team is of course very essential to that. So you need to have a team and the whole team should take ownership of, okay, this is my thing, this is my application, including the infrastructure, and then we might get towards continuous delivery. But that's the first step. And you can only take ownership from the things you want to take ownership from if you decouple them clearly. So that's the next step. So you want to take ownership of something, you have a team who wants to take ownership. After that you need to be clear, what do I take ownership of and what's not my responsibility, what's outside there. So on application level we have a API first, well that's a buzzword too, but it is really nice to think about, okay, what's my API? that I'm exposing, delivering, that I'm responsible for. And how can I deliver that in such a way that my users or my consumers can use it without any downtime, without any problems, and I can try to automate the delivery of it. And the same is for the infrastructure. Well, that's the question of just maybe, I don't know, someone said, I think it was you, on the cloud side, that's basically an API of your infrastructure. So you have decoupled your infrastructure clearly. So that helps to decouple it. And this is quite hard, especially on-premise data centers stuff. Yeah. And lastly, you need to automate it. Automate it. And automation is a mindset. It's not actually doing the automation and scripting your things, but it's thinking in, how can I automate this? What do I automate? Everything. And till the point that you want to automate yourself away. So you have to think about, what am I doing? What am I doing day to day? And how can I automate it? That's the level of mindset you need to get towards the continuous delivery. Well, that's nice conceptual and quite far, but still, if you don't take ownership, if you don't decouple and you don't start thinking in automation, that's a hard time doing continuous delivery.
Decoupling what? And what? Application from infrastructure?
No, you want to take ownership. If you want to take ownership, then you need to be clear on what I take ownership of. So then you have to be really clear about the boundaries of what you take ownership of. So you should decouple everything you depend on.
Right.
And that's your application, including your infrastructure.
Decoupling from the other owners.
From the things you don't take ownership of.
You see automation there as mandatory?
Yeah.
There's no whether or not.
No, it's labor intensive. If you do repetitive tasks, I think you should automate it, because if you do repetitive tasks, I tend to make mistakes. So I automate it so that I don't make mistakes. And I don't like repetitive tasks also.
Yes, that's the. How can you take responsibility for something you do manually? I don't trust myself to do things twice the same way. So just don't go there. Automate things from the start.
As you get the deviation of normalization. If you do manually, you do things the same way, but you start taking shortcuts and another shortcut, and you can get away for a long time.
And it doesn't give you any chance to optimize. So when you start taking shortcuts, probably by scripting it, starting to automate, then you can optimize it. So yeah, I think it's mandatory.
Yeah, with regard to security, I come from that background, so my experience says 60 to 70% you can automate, but remaining 30 you have to do it manually, because there are logic level issues which you cannot identify using any type of automation, at least so far.
For security testing.
Yeah. So probably if you're going ahead with continuous delivery, security testing in production may be one idea, because you can deliver continuously everything in production and then continue that 30% in production. When testing on production environment.
Or can you test on a production like environment?
That would be an alternative.
Yes, and the exploratory testing is, I think it should be in that space of exploratory testing, because you don't need those kind of security testing every release.
That's true. Agree.
And I think we can do a lot more, and it's quite in the childish level how we do security testing. But injection testing is quite easily to automate.
Exactly.
But nobody's doing
But
that.
you should also prevent it. By using code standards, code review automated, and then you can also get a lot of errors on security level before you go to production. It's also discipline and learning.
Over a period of time, yes, you actually rely less on manual testing and believe in more automation. I agree.
So let's have some more statements. Are you still into it? The after dinner dip is really hitting us. Alright. DevOps equals Agile?
What is Agile DevOps? If you think about it that way, then it's not.
I have this discussion all the time.
Yeah. So at least it's an actual question.
Well, there's Agile outside of software engineering, so should they operate on an Agile way? That's what you're asking, actually. Should they
there is some relation.
But what is it?
But what is it exactly? Is it? Can you do DevOps without Agile?
Yes, you can.
We can be non-reactive to changes.
You can be non-reactive to changes, and do DevOps,
If you change the sign in the plus, it's easier.
DevOps plus Agile. Yeah. So it's at least it is supportive to each other.
Right.
Yes. I think it's complementary.
1 plus 1 is 3. I think. They enhance each other.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, so almost sounds like we should
That's how we came up with this.
Put a sign in between.
So do we need DevOps before continuous delivery?
I think you should define DevOps first.
Okay, well, operations of the production environment. Do you need that to have continuous delivery? And continuous delivery is not as clear as we saw in the previous statements. But let's say continuous delivery is including deployment in production.
Yes.
Let's have the nice.
Then ideally, I think you want to do DevOps, but it's I think for a lot of companies it's something that is difficult to go through because they have lots of existing, let's say, silos and processes. So I do think that you can do continuous delivery without DevOps, but I do say that it's maybe you can say that if that DevOps will bring all the best out of doing continuous delivery, and doing it without it is like a hampered one.
But if you take DevOps out this equation and you say we take ownership also about the production environment, then I cannot do DevOps, so I cannot do my management on the production environment, and I cannot take ownership.
Well, that I agree, but let's say in the sense that I might be able to do continuous delivery on a subset of the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm not the one who does the entire stack, or for example, who manages the entire set of virtual machines or clusters.
Yeah. So there's a level of continuous delivery, and there's a level of DevOps.
Yeah. So I do think that if you truly take ownership of the whole stack, then you should do DevOps, because then you need both, all the different disciplines involved. But again,
also no DevOps team will have control over its own infrastructure completely, because then it would have its own data center, and that's not happening unless you are in the cloud. So you have always a level of general available services which you have to use to put something in production.
If we think about Docker and the Docker component.
Yeah, exactly. You can control your Docker images, but there is an infrastructure which provides you with service with Docker.
Okay, then we say that the infrastructure is probably 90.998% up, so
yeah,
then you
exactly.
can,
You have
think
to
you can
Okay.
I think there are areas where, for example, databases, you have shared databases.
Yeah.
You cannot take ownership, as your application, because you're sharing the database, the whole layer.
You share the database server.
Yeah. Yeah, so you have shared infrastructure which you cannot take ownership, but you have to adjust your probably some part of the delivery, as you rightly said, at different levels of both.
Yeah. There's always shared infrastructure.
Yeah.
If you turn it around, I can do DevOps and waterfall at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's not continuous delivery anymore.
Yeah, so it's not the same, and it's not mandatory to have both to have both, but it helps to have both.
Do you have DevOps within Kadaster?
Yes and no, because the database is a great example.
Because I've seen many organizations where it's very hard to implement this.
Yeah.
Because of the procedures. If you have a big organization, it's very hard to have a DevOps team.
Yeah, but we can, at Kadaster we can deploy our services to production. We do deploy to production. So we are in that way we are DevOps. But I don't have to upgrade the production environment because that's a SaaS provider. And also the database, I get the database is delivered for me, but the database I have the administrator account, the database is for me, so I can do with the database what I
So database as a service.
Yeah.
Yes, but the actual hardware, well, it's a virtual machine still, but the actual database server is shared.
Yeah.
So it's not as but it interferes with each other on the wrong times.
The interesting thing is that, for example, the framework like the SAFe framework relies on continuous delivery, but also relies on DevOps. It says DevOps is the practice to go if you want to do your continuous delivery at scale. So it is the advisable way, but at the same time there are many nuances, and in my I don't even want to touch the bare bones and the infrastructure and things like that. But so if part of the organization, in my opinion, is providing me with the infrastructure that I can use it as fully as I need it, that's fine. I don't need to take ownership of the bare metal and things like that.
Well, having an API of your infrastructure is a way of decoupling your infrastructure from your for your own service or your own what you take responsibility for.
But SQL Plus is already an API to the database, so you could discuss on that.
Yeah. Well, let's move on. So autonomous teams and DevOps. It's all wanted, right? Yeah. So, do they exist? Don't exist?
I think they do exist, even until the left in the bare metal.
They started becoming exist.
What do you think of the business then?
Next question.
Next question. Okay. I've seen the security development operations as well. So sec DevOps. Interesting. But sec DevOps. Team, right? At least we should respect each other, right? All right. Let's get something technical and talk about our ingredients. Just what we do at Kadaster. Okay. We use Git. Luckily, we do. We had Subversion before and ClearCase. Good old times. Yeah. Been done that. At least we have Git. We have a GitHub Enterprise at our on-premise, and to use Git and to use a proper way of working with it, we have several teams using the. Who knows? The Git flow, yeah, great. And we have the GitHub flow as well in other teams. So we use both, and it's interesting. What do you need, or what makes it easier to do continuous delivery? And we came from a situation that most teams use the Git flow, but after automating more and more, it's getting we don't use the master at all, we just use the develop string. So why not get away, get the development stream out of the way and just use a master with pull requests. So yeah.
With no branches, feature branches.
Yes, we do.
The branch is a feature.
Okay. Yeah.
So what about trunk-based?
Sorry?
What about trunk-based development?
No. No.
That's step two.
Yeah, that's step 4.
But
Yeah.
is this the practice you advise to your teams? Do you let the teams have to make their own decisions on how to do it, or how does it work at your organization?
We let the teams decide, and I'm promoting this.
But they have to decide between these two. They
No,
cannot
they
decide
can
on
they can
trunk-based.
No, if they want, they can do trunk based.
Okay.
But it's to the team. But in most teams, the way of having a branch, doing commits, merging, is complex enough to have something like this. Well,
Oh, yes.
do it like this. It helps.
Yeah.
So it makes it clear to have only 2 choices instead of, well, here's Git. Good luck with it.
I agree.
So that's why I promote this one, because it has it has branches, which helps to separate commits from other commits and still merges into one tree. So it's quite simple and still sophisticated enough.
I think a key thing to mention is that the write part needs to go fast. The branches shouldn't be long-lived at all.
Yeah, of course.
Because otherwise it's still the same hell as Git one.
What's the average age of a branch? What's the time between pull requests?
Yeah, it depends on the teams. On the teams I'm in, it's pull requests. A branch is open for 5 days, and pull request is merged in within a day.
You need to call security.
You said motivate. How do you motivate or enforce it?
Enforce what?
This way of working basically for all.
We don't. We each team we try to have autonomous teams so they can decide how they work for themselves. But on the other hand, autonomous teams is really hard, and you need to guide them. So that's an interesting balance between you're on your own. Good luck with it, and yes, but if you do it like this, it will probably help you. But it's for you to choose.
Just a question on this one. If you use the GitHub flow with the pull request, one thing I like about that kind of flow is that you can use the pull request to trigger some peer review and maybe some automated checks. Do you guys have automation on the PRs as well?
Yeah. So sometimes we have a pull request, don't merge this, because we just want to see what the differences are, and we want to improve on the solutions.
And you can get some feedback while you're at it.
Yeah. And there's a difference in between teams as well. Some teams they start a branch and make pull requests straight away, and they communicate about when to merge the pull request. Other teams they work on the branch and then they make pull requests to signal the team it's ready for review and merge. Except when it's marked with don't merge. Yeah. From Hudson came Jenkins, so we now are on Jenkins build servers, which looks at GitHub, or the other way around. We have GitHub Jenkins hooks. So GitHub triggers Jenkins, and then of course we have the build. Do you use Jenkins files? Who's using Jenkins for start? Who's using Jenkins files?
Using what?
Jenkins files. I heard you talking about Travis, right?
Different discussion.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. I don't know Travis, but I assume it has something similar.
The Travis YAML file.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, great. Cool. We have we have teams doing manual Jenkins configuration, but we're moving towards Jenkins files, so we're somewhere in the middle. And we deploy and using Jenkins to deploy our applications to our infrastructure. And that brings us to infrastructure. We have a internal cloud platform, which is called a professional Linux platform. Yeah. And one of the tastes you can request for is a Java application platform, which is a Tomcat on a Linux machine. You can request for a Docker machine as well, and then you can do all the Docker stuff, which is really cool because it gives great flexibility to teams to use and to deploy and to be flexible with your deployments. So that's really great into production. So yeah. So the machines are exactly the same from the test environment until production.
How many environments are there in between Dell and Marc?
We have
Delphi integration test.
Yeah, we have. I would say we have like the historical 4 environments in networking, but you can request your own hosts. So you can do like a test environment in production if you like. Just request for another host and define it as test. So that gives great flexibility and options. But generally we're using the development test acceptance and production environment. Because we connect with a lot of external parties, there we have production environments which are just for testing the integration between other parties. I think we need to speed up, right? It's 8 o'clock. Right. Well, some automated testing stuff. I think you know them all, right? Selenium, Postman, SoapUI. Quality gates, and we have quality gates which break the build. So we actually have pipelines to break if the quality gate is not there.
Did you know that SonarQube actually tells people not to do that anymore?
I didn't.
They removed the option to break your build from the last version, and you can put it back in, but then you have to edit and hack your way around it.
What was the reason that
they decided to stop doing it themselves because it held them back. And what they do now is still do the sonar check parallel to the build and still deploy to production. But if the SonarQube fails, they'll put the name of who made it fail on a big screen and let him fix it, but not let it stop the process.
All right, gamification. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. We do smoke testing as well after deployment to make sure that the deployment did work out. So that's part of the DevOps automation. Well, let's move through some quick examples and then. Yeah. You want to have the movie shown or?
Yeah, that's the one I think you can do.
Okay.
This is the team where I'm working on. This movie is in Dutch, but
Het kadaster beheert enkele basisregistraties. Een basisregistratie is een officieel aangewezen registratie die door overheden verplicht wordt gebruikt en bijgehouden. Deze gegevens zijn van hoge kwaliteit en actualiteit. Ontbreekt er volgens u toch iets in een registratie of twijfelt u aan de juistheid ervan? Doe dan een terugmelding. Voor de basisregistraties topografie, grootschalige topografie en adressen en gebouwen is het terugmelden voor u heel gemakkelijk gemaakt. Voor de topografische basisregistraties gaat u naar www.verbeterdekaart.nl. Maak een melding door een punt op de kaart te prikken. Omschrijf uw melding, geef uw e-mailadres op en stuur eventueel een bijlage, zoals een foto mee. Na verzending verschijnt uw melding direct op de kaart. U maakt een melding met een smartphone, tablet of computer. Met de Bach-viewer maakt u een terugmelding op de basisregistratie adressen en gebouwen. Een ontbrekend object meldt u door het potloodje naar de plaats te slepen waar u het object mist. Door op een bestaand object te klikken kunt u aangeven wat er niet klopt. Zoals bijvoorbeeld het bouwjaar. Daarna geeft u een onderbouwing en voegt u eventueel een bijlage toe. De melding wordt automatisch naar de bronhouder van de basisregistratie gestuurd. Dit kunnen gemeenten, provincies, waterschappen, rijksorganisaties of het kadaster zelf zijn. De bronhouder onderzoekt of de registratie verbeterd kan worden. Als dit het geval is, wordt de melding goedgekeurd en op een later moment in de registratie bijgewerkt. Bij elke verandering ontvangt u een e-mail met de nieuwe status en eventueel een toelichting. Deze status is ook meteen zichtbaar op de kaart en in PDoc, waar alle terugmeldingen als open data ontsloten worden. Gefeliciteerd! Dankzij uw hulp is de kwaliteit van de registraties verder verbeterd. Zo houden we samen de kwaliteit hoog. Helpt u ook mee? Ga dan naar www.verbeterdekaart.nl of bugviewer.kadaster.nl om een terugmelding te doen. Het terugmeldsysteem is tot stand gekomen in samenwerking met het ministerie van Infrastructuur en Milieu, het samenwerkingsverband van BGT-bronhouders, het kadaster en publieke dienstverlening op de kaart. Heeft u vragen over het terugmelden? Ga dan naar www.kadaster.nl/terugmelden.
Okay, so this is in the team I'm working in. We are 3 people, so a small Scrum team. And the functionality what you just saw is made up of 3 components. One backend component made in Java and 2 frontend components, one in Angular and one in AngularJS. And we use Jenkins for our automation, and this is all done on the development side. So if you do a check-in, then the GitHub hook will trigger Jenkins, and a build will be triggered. Now, this is no Jenkins file, so you can see there's still a lot of small jobs, and if the job is triggered, it will go to this flow. This is of course the normal build, the build and unit test. If that's okay, then the created artifact will be imported and deployed to a development environment. After that we do a smoke test, and if that's okay, we run a sonar report. Typical on a day we will do 1 to 9 commits, depending on how the day is, and every commit ends up in a deployable artifact or development environment. So that's what we have to choose for as a team, and this is working for us. It has saved sometimes that we broke the build, if we broke the deployment, so we could easily fix it and then see what went wrong. If we make a release, then we merge from the development stream. We all working on the development stream. We merge to the master stream, and we use Git flow for that. So we don't use future branches. We all work together because we are a very small team, just on the development branch. And then after that, is also automated completely. The merge is automated. This release will be built with the Git flow plugin, and that release will be deployed on the integration test. And from there on, that binary will be moved to the acceptance test in production. So, do we completely continuously integrating the deployment? Well, in development, yes, and the other steps are manual. The next slide. What we also use, because there was an interesting discussion, we release once or twice per sprint to production. And we gave the product owner a nice dashboard, and he can decide if he puts the feature we created, if he puts it on or off. And I don't know who knows this framework, Thomas? Who knows that? No? Okay, well, try it out. You can, if you have a feature, if you create a feature, you just put an enumeration in. You say, well, this is a feature. And if you want to know if it's on or off, then you just can check it if it's on. But the fun part is from this is that you can put it on or off, but you can also do on a timestamp. So we put it last October on 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We put something in production because there was a geo event, a geo event, and that was demonstrating a new production part, so we put it at that time still in production. What you also can do, you can put a specific client. You can say, well, this feature is only open for that client, so you can do some production test. Well, you can do it in FTO for that client, but all the software is already integrated, so you know it's already in production. Also, if you do unit tests, unit tests don't look at the toggles. Unit tests always assume everything is on, so everything will be hit within the unit test. So in the process, everything is already tested. And we, with our small team, we think it's valuable, and it really helps us to do the continuous delivery and the continuous release. That's something else. We split it from each other, and that part helps us to just keep moving forward, and chronically you can decide which functionality you enable. Next slide.
Yes, this is the team I'm working on. I'll just move through it. We have in GitHub we have an organization. We have 54 repositories in there, and so it's quite some build jobs. It's searching for the Jenkins files, so it's Jenkins is looking into the GitHub organization. It's really cool, and so we have our pipeline until production. And here's a very interesting part, because we have about 20 Docker containers running all and integrating all. So the integration test is really essential to have the whole orchestration tested. So that's interesting and quite common failing tests. Because I think that's the hardest part of trying something Microservices like and orchestrating it. So it's really helpful to have it in place. But if it goes well, we go into production automatically. So, and then it has about, that's a merge, and then it's triggered, and about 20 minutes later it's in production. So, yeah. And to be able to do that, we try to do DevOps, so we have monitoring in place, and we have Slack who is telling us if the deployment failed or it was successful. And this was just an ordinary day where we had about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 deployments until 2 o'clock. So I'm quite happy on being this far on continuous delivery. And I think we have about 4 teams doing it like this, or similar, and we have like the other 46 teams doing some level less, but in different levels.
So where do you guys store your artifacts?
We have an artifactory internally. So we have an internal repository for Docker images, as well as the Java artifacts, as well as Node.js, our web components.
Do you use semantic versioning between teams? Do you coordinate with that? So everybody knows if they can upgrade it to a different your project, if they have dependency on your stuff?
No. You do?
Yeah. We create a generic component called the search component, and if there's an Angular library, if you put it in your application, your Angular application, then you can search for locations, the address, and everything. And we have a wiki on GitHub as well, and we have the release number in it, and we keep on GitHub in the wiki what the new functionality is, and the department that's using that library can just upgrade if they want, and take advantage of that new functionality. When they're ready, yeah. It's not mandatory. And because we have Artifactory, the old version is still there, so there's no problem.
During your integration tests, is anything stubbed or mocked? Or
is there anything?
Stubs or mocks?
Yes, we do, especially the external systems, so our dependencies of the system.
Okay.
So, and what we don't have in place too good, to my opinion, to my taste, is having API tests of the external APIs. So that fails in the acceptance and production environment regularly. Too bad, yeah. Decoupling is hard.
Yeah.
And having that in an automated process, it's just difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. If you're ever lucky enough to start a new project, then maybe that's the test you should start with. As soon as you couple to somebody else, write tests that verify if they haven't changed.
Yeah. I agree, and I wanted that I had that experience.
I'll
And
try
I
to
thought,
remember it for myself next time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, the most important part is have your team decide what you do, and don't automate above what your team can handle, and don't go outside your team. Go with the team, take ownership with the team. That's the takeaway.
Yeah, takeaway. We think that's the takeaway.
Yeah, exactly. So that, I think it's time for some break. Right, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.